And welcome to Houston Newsmakers Extra. I'm talking with Dr. Vida Robertson, who is the Director of Critical Race Studies at the University of Houston downtown. You've been watching Newsmakers. You know we've had this conversation going on. Now we're talking about this, the ugly past that this country has had. There's no way to get around that.
No way to get around it.
But the politicization of what it is over the last few years is we don't really want to talk about ugly past. By the way, critical race theory, as I understand it, is not being taught except on the college level.
That's
correct?
Exactly right.
So that's one of the things, that's one of the fallacies out there.
That's right. Well. That's a misnomer. So there was a whole political ploy to turn all analysis or discussions about race into this boogeyman named critical race theory. And so if you wanted to read African American literature or Latino poetry, or you wanted to engage in Asian American music, then somehow that became a tool for undermining America, because we are all supposed to be the same. But that is, of course, deeply problematic because, number one, it does not allow us to celebrate the rich, eclectic, vibrant America that we are. We are an amazing experiment. Nowhere else in the world were people brought from so many spaces, so many cultures, languages, and experiences to engage in this experiment where each of us has a chance to define and live out our greatest aspirations. And so without that kind of cultural milieu, right, that kind of deep appreciation for the rich fabric, social fabric of America, we do ourselves a disservice.
So you, like me, I'm very passionate about this country. I believe it has great potential, but I guess it's got to be rather frustrating for you as you are trying to let people know that, yeah, great country, but this happened.
That's right.
We got to acknowledge it.
We have to acknowledge it. Right. And our past does not necessarily necessitate our future. Right. But of course, as the adage goes, without learning our past, we are destined to repeat it.
So how young do you think people should be? I remember Mrs. Dorothy Barr, my fifth grade teacher at Westwood Elementary School in Junction City, Kansas. we know about these teachers in our lives.
That's right. That's right.
In our classroom, we read the autobiography of Frederick Douglass.
That's it.
That was not a pretty book.
That was not a pretty book.
As a fifth grader,
there you go.
So the question is, a lot of parents don't want their kids to get this in elementary school. How young do you think kids or how this kind of subject should be taught?
Right. So I believe much like in your personal history, it is okay for us to introduce aspects or less flattering components of our American past. Our children are getting ready to inherit this experiment. And if they are not fully equipped to be able to deal with its nuances and its complexities and many of its contradictions and problems, then we are destined again to perpetuate it. So I would argue we do need to be celebrating our literature and culture at very young ages. We can start in elementary school, in middle school, by having conversations about the way that we've organized this democracy that we engage in. And by high schools, it's okay for us to start asking serious questions about our Supreme Court decisions and the practices that stem from them, so that when we get to college, right, this space of higher learning, that now we are crafting the leaders of tomorrow. And if our leaders are not equipped or not engaged or not informed, then how could we possibly be the greatest country in the world if we don't have the greatest education in the world?
And so now we have these pockets, these silos of people who are siloed off about what they believe, and they really are believing things that are factually incorrect.
That's correct.
And so at this point, when they embrace it and they're fiery about it and they're just adamant about not doing it, how do you break through that? Or do you just continue to just preach the truth and that's the way it's going to be?
Well, of course, so I don't think that's an either or. I think it's going to have to be a both and. So we have to recognize that much of the work that we do as social justice warriors, as champions for equity and equality in our society, is going to come up against the fundamental organizational tool of America. America was never intended to be equal. That's the lie we tell ourselves, right? It was never intended to be equal. While our founding fathers were writing the documents, they made sure the founding mothers were nowhere near it. While our founding fathers were writing the document, they made sure that the enslaved people who built the building would not be enshrined in that document. While they were crafting this beautiful democracy, they made sure that the people whose land they were standing on would never be a part of it and be excluded. They made sure that we would be a nation that was for a particular people and would serve a particular end. That's the facts. That's not even disputable. So when we come to realize that America has always been an aspiration more than it's been a country, and when we can move, as our brother Barack would say, as we move toward perfecting this union, right? That's what we've been doing. Mm-hmm. You only need the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment because you left people out. People didn't have equal protection under the law until we enshrined it. Folks did not have franchisement until we enshrined it. Mm-hmm. We are fundamentally an unequal society, but it is our dedication to being the America of our dream that makes us amazing.
Okay, so now I understand what we're going to have to do. Invite you back.
Yes, sir, please
We're going to
do.
do a whole program. Because it deserves a whole program, I think.
Thank
if you don't mind giving us a master class.
Yeah, of course, I would love to. It would be my honor.
Good deal. Dr. Vida Robertson, thank you so much for your time. This is Houston Newsmakers Extra. For this Juneteenth weekend, it would probably be a good idea if you share this with everyone you know.